Hi, I'm Brad Whitchurch. I'm the CEO of SEALShield and the host of the Clean Talk podcast. Here at SEALShield, we want to wish you all a very happy holidays. And we have a very special announcement today. Very excited to award our Distributor of the Year award to TD SYNNEX. You know, I started my career back at Tech Data in the early 90s, and I've enjoyed a partnership of over 2 decades with SYNNEX. Now that they have merged and become TD SYNNEX, they are the #1 IT distributor in the world, and we're very proud to call them our partner and acknowledge them as the #1 distribution partner for SEALShield. Congratulations, TD SYNNEX, and a special shout out to my good friend and partner, Scott Young, and we're going to replay the Clean Talk episode with Scott Young for your enjoyment. Happy holidays.
A small vendor here at SYNNEX, healthcare vendor, been around since 2006. In 2006, that was about when Dell, Insight, CDW, they all started their healthcare teams, and we had a healthcare product, and we wanted to sell it to them. A bunch of us, we had all come from Tech Data, straight out of school. It was our first jobs, and we thought, sure, Tech Data is going to be the great distributor for us, but they didn't want to hear us. They didn't want to hear from a brand new niche company. But somebody did. In 2006, he answered our call, Scott Young. He had a little group called the Strategic Purchasing, or 3PL group back in the day, and he didn't have a problem with bringing it on a vendor. He had some insight. He thought that maybe the healthcare space would be a good recession-proof business, and really, we gave him this award. It's for the 2022 Distributor of the Year. But it really could be from 2006 to 2022, running forever. But Scott picked up the call that first time, and he's picked it up every time. His teams are amazing.
$100,000 the first year?
Yeah, like $100,000 that first year. Tech Data didn't want to hear that from us in the beginning, but now it's it's a whole different world, and we owe it all to you, Scott, and your team. Thank you.
The first time these guys drove up in a rental van with a dishwasher in the back. So not only did I let them come in, I had to help them with the dishwasher, but that's okay. And literally $100,000, and now on from I was saying it's an 8-figure business that Bill wants to be 9. We're working on it, Bill. But guys, you're what it's all about, right? And there's a room full of folks just like you guys in this room today. And I can't thank you guys and everyone in here for all your support, believing in us. We did $30 million the first year. 15 years ago, we eclipsed 1.2 billion in fiscal 22. I can do that. Peter, he wants me to do 2 billion in another year and a half, 2 years. But it's because of you guys in the room, and you guys are the poster child for what the kind of vendors we want, and we appreciate it very much. So, awesome.
Anytime.
Welcome to another episode of Clean Talk. I'm your host, Brad Whitchurch. We are coming to you live from beautiful sunny downtown Orlando, Florida in the SEALShield studios. And I'm very excited this week to have my guest, an old friend of mine, Mr. Scott Young. He's the Senior VP at TD SYNNEX, Broadline IT Distribution Company. And we're going to find out all about what they do at TD SYNNEX and what Scott's role is. Scott, welcome to the show.
Brad, thank you for having me. We go way back. We won't tell anybody how many years, but so delighted to be on here, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Well, thank you for being here. I know you know where the bodies are buried, so we'll tread lightly. But Scott, what more can you tell us about yourself and your background and what you do at TD SYNNEX?
Well, my 25th anniversary will be coming up in April. I'd like to say I started when I was 15, but that would not be truthful. So, but I've started there. 25 years later, I'll run strategic procurement. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Started out as an entry-level buyer there, and then worked my way up. Now I run a group called Strategic Procurement, which is where you guys reside in your world, in your business is a vendor of ours. But it's been a good ride, very blessed. And now with now we're TD SYNNEX, and it's just great things ahead. Very exciting time to be a part of IT distribution, especially at TD SYNNEX.
It absolutely is. And we're going to talk about that merger that created the world's largest IT distributor.
Little transaction, yeah.
Yeah, a small transaction, a small multi-billion-dollar transaction. But for our audience, Scott, let's take a step back and maybe you can explain to people what it is that you do at TD SYNNEX and what TD SYNNEX's role is in the supply chain. I think a lot of people don't realize, and we've queued it up as the invisible hand of supply chain, but everybody's working on their computers at work and at home. And most people don't realize that there's a good chance that whatever computer they're touching went through a TD SYNNEX warehouse. Tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, not to simplify it too much, but it's connecting the dots, right? It's completing solutions, connecting the dots. It's awareness, anything from financing, services, think about all the services. And we do some of that with you guys, installations, tech support, all kinds of different facets of that, and again, the supply chain, right? It's got to come, it gets made somewhere, but it's got to go somewhere else, right? It has to be warehoused somewhere, and it has to be logistics. It has to be integrated and bundled, and I could go on, but that's kind of where we are, right? So I don't want to say Rodney Dangerfield sometimes, but you kind of feel like that a little bit too. But it's, again, we're invisible.
No respect
for a reason, right? We are the ones that makes it happen. I tell manufacturers like yourself, it's taking what we do. It's taking that great product that someone has spent their life designing, like you and your dad, and all the hard work you guys put in, and making it available and visible. And now more than ever, we didn't envision we'd be shipping to everyone's house and everywhere these days. So it used to be warehouse to warehouse and that kind of stuff, storefronts and whatnot. Now it's everywhere. There's not an address, I don't think, in America that hasn't gotten a piece of technology shipped to them over the last 20 months, right? So but yeah, that's just a little bit. I could talk for hours, right? But it's, again, it just connects the dots, it completes the solutions. That's the simplistic answer.
Scott, I could talk for hours about it too. It's a half-hour live podcast, but let's give a little bit of context, because I think most people don't realize the scale of what we're talking about. And again, we call it, or I call it, the invisible hand of the supply chain, because TD SYNNEX is really almost the middleware, right? You're the guy in the middle
Yes.
between a manufacturer of a product and between the reseller or the value-added reseller that's delivering those products to an end user, getting them in front of your desk. But you play a critical role in the middle there. Can you give our audience some idea of the context we're talking about, the scale? How big is TD SYNNEX? Give me some of the stats.
Yeah. So, and all this is something you could find if you did some searches, but it's a $59 billion organization now. It's 1,500 plus vendor partners, 200,000 products and solutions, 150,000 resellers. And I told you earlier, I'm glad I looked that up again because I would have been a little off there, but 150,000 resellers, number one global IT distributor in the world. And I tell folks, I'm blessed to some of the businesses that I touch are bigger now than what SYNNEX was when I started 25 years ago. So just a great success story. It hats off to our leadership, to our founder, from our founder, Bob Wong, now to our great leaders now. It's been a good ride, and I'm very blessed. But yeah, it's a big deal. And again, if you look at all those stats I gave you, somebody's got to help finance all that stuff. Somebody's got to have a place to get it from A to B, and someone has to have, we have multiple facilities where we warehouse it all, do integration. Sometimes it just doesn't, go get shipped from the box to you. Something's got to be done to it a lot of times as well. And then someone can even deliver it for you, which we do too. So it's invisible, but it's not, right.
Well, and I think it's a testament to the value you provide that it is invisible. You make all this happen and it's just magic for the average consumer, and they never really even conceive of it. I want to put a little bit of context on it as well, Scott, because I think it's a great data point. You mentioned that now you have some of your vendor partners that have grown with you to be bigger than SYNNEX was when you started there 25 years ago. I think that's a super neat stat. And, in many ways, it kind of parallels the SEALSHIELD experience. And this podcast is all about you today, Bud, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say, and I've told you before, SealShield wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for SYNNEX and for Scott Young. And if you'll humor me, I'll tell the story. I'll make it brief, but you know,
I think you may want to tell instead of me. So yeah.
Okay, I'll tell the story, and then you can say if I'm lying. You know, when I started SealShield, we developed the world's first dishwasher safe keyboard and mouse, and we were fortunate to have immediate success with that product. We launched it at the 2007 HIMSS Healthcare Show, and there was immediate demand. One of those big customers that came to us was Banner Health, and they wanted to standardize on our product. And I was all excited. I said, fantastic, you know, how do you want to buy it? And they said, well, we can't buy it from you. You're not set up in our system. Who are you? But, you know, we buy from CDW. I said, okay, well, let me call CDW. I called up CDW. They're like, oh, there's a great opportunity with Banner Health. We'll do anything for Banner Health, but we can't buy from you. I mean, who are you? You're not set up in our system. I said, well, who do you buy from? And they said, we buy from SYNNEX. I said, let me call Scott Young. I know Scott Young at SYNNEX. I gave you a call, and you had this a similar reaction. Hey, we'll do anything for CDW. And at the time, you were heading up this, I think similar to your role now, what I would call the boutique distributor within the big distributor, looking for innovative opportunities, for growth opportunities. And you brought SealShield on to fulfill that business with CDW and Banner and grow that business line. And I knew as soon as we entered into that agreement that I was onto something, that we were going to be successful. And as you know, I called our mutual friend, Scott Fillion, and I said, Scott, this thing, I think it's going to go now. I mean, I just got distribution. I've got SYNNEX. I'm going to Greenville, South Carolina to do my first sales training for them, but I can't show up there alone. I mean, I'll look, you know, like I'm way too small. I haven't seen you in a couple of years. Why don't you fly over there and meet me? Let me buy you a steak dinner, and, you know, let's chat. There may be some opportunity for us to work together again. And I threw a dishwasher in the back of my truck and drove up from Florida to South Carolina. I know you remember, I wheeled that dishwasher.
I helped you unload it.
That's right. That's right. You helped me unload the dishwasher. I rolled it into the training. We had keyboards and mice in the dishwasher. I started the training, and then I was about 5 minutes into it, and the auditorium doors at the back busted open, and Scott came walking in with his suitcase. And I said, here he is now, our VP of sales, Scott Fillion. And he never said no. And we've been together ever since. And none of it would have happened without your partnership and without you having the vision to see that there was an opportunity here. And I know you've replicated stories like that again and again and again with other vendor partners. And so I would be remiss not to say thank you once again. And absolutely, SealShield would not be here today if it wasn't for SYNNEX and Scott Young. So,
well, I remember the phone call. Yeah, you were 0 for 2, right? Banner Health said no, and CW said no, and you're like, all right, man, I don't want to have strike 3 here, right? And funny, the ironic part is the event you went to was an All Star theme based on baseball. So it all that's funny how things kind of go, but that's what we're all about. It's the intimacy, you know. Now you should have seen my boss's face. Now when I told him I was gonna, you know, we needed to buy a bunch of dishwash safe keyboards. I think he may have threw me out of his office the first time. Just saying, I didn't tell you that, obviously. But now, you know, we all love you, right? Because it's just a great business. But it speaks to the intimacy that we have. The key to the world that specifically that I manage is making someone like SealShield. I mean, you're my you put whatever OEM name you want to put on there. You know, Microsoft, Google, whatever it is. I mean, you are as important to us as those big guys are to the ecosystem. So it's what it's all about. So, and I love the story. Yeah, you were spot on.
But I love the story too. And again, we wouldn't be here without you. And I know that it's a story that you replicate in some form and fashion with many other vendors. That's the supply chain side, right? The benefit that you provide to innovators and product developers, manufacturers. And a lot of people don't realize that we were talking about it earlier, but in many ways, you guys are a bank, right? Because you're providing the financing, the logistics, all the warehousing products in multiple warehouses around the country for just-in-time delivery with facilities and economies of scale that most manufacturers can't begin to match. So that's the supply side. But then talk about the value add to your customer, to the resellers.
Yeah, it's the delivery, right? It's the supply chain, it's services. You know, we represent someone like you from the service standpoint. They don't even realize it's us, right? We're representing the manufacturer. But again, it's that picking up that phone call. It's being able to, you know, get tech support on there, get engineering on the phone, whoever it might be, right? And really what I've instilled in every piece of that supply chain is everybody is our customer, whether it be SealShield, whether it be that reseller, or whether it be that sales rep or that internal person that, that customer service rep on your side, right? You've all got to be customer facing, customer first, as we call it. That's where it starts. Then you just basically, you let the, I tell the story that my father used to remind me that God gave us one mouth and two ears for a reason. And I have to remind myself of that. So you got to pick up the phone and listen. What's that reseller need? What's that end user need? Or what probably most of the time it's not it's an emergency, almost always, right?
Sure.
And they got to have it yesterday and they need it for, as cost effective as possible. And that's where it starts. And for me, it's fun. People that work for me think I'm crazy sometimes. My version of fun is what we're doing, right? Is this business we're in. But you start there, you listen, and then you just, make it happen. And there's obviously a lot to it. It's not as simple as that, but you just start there and you know who to call and who to pull in and that kind of thing. And most of the time it works out. So.
Well, my dad always told me, do what you do best and outsource the rest. And that's really the role that you guys play, whether you're a manufacturer like us or a reseller customer of yours. You facilitate those both ends of that equation being able to do what they do best, because you're taking care of the financing, you're taking care of the logistics, you're taking care of the back office, the warehousing. And I think that's the real benefit, right? Just
you have to know your role. Exactly. You have to know your role, and that is what it's all about. And yes. So, well,
I want to get to this merger because it, in our world, it's as big as it gets, right? So a little context for our audience. Tech Data was the world's second largest IT distributor. SYNNEX was the world's third largest IT distributor. And recently with capital partner Apollo Private Equity, you guys have pulled off the monster deal of the year and created the world's largest IT distributor with global reach and a scale and size that is unmatched. Tell us a little bit about.
Thank you. A merger of two great. It's a merger of two great entities, right?
Right.
Now, if you're our president, Peter LaRock, 1 + 1 = 3, 4, 5, 6. But that it started with a merger. It's a merger of two great companies coming together. We're a couple months in now from the close, and it's amazing. And but it's a lot, right? You talk about that coming together, and it's a journey, it's an adventure, and it's a powerhouse. And I remember the days of being in those meetings 24, 25 years ago, and there's these visions of, one of these days we're going to be number one. I don't know that we are. I mean, I really believed it. And, the leader we have that's still around today, 38 years later, Peter, he believed it. And here we are. And it's pretty cool, to be honest.
Well, it is cool. And I told you, I predicted it. And there's plenty of witnesses to that, because it was the smart play. It was the economy.
And you were a former employee of Tech Data, right?
That's right. I started my career at Tech Data in the early 90s. So,
just great leadership. Michael Urban, Rich Hume. I could go on and on. I'm going to leave somebody else. I don't want to mention a lot of names because I know I'm going to forget some, but those three individuals certainly it's pretty cool to watch. And yes, it's been a long time coming, I believe. And yes, pretty cool. Both of us got our starts when they were both much smaller, and here we are. So
that's right. Well, I mean, I remember when I started at Tech Data, they were $100 million distributor, and they just signed Microsoft, said they were going to double to $200 million that year. And now here you guys are, $60 billion. It's just, it seems like yesterday, and wow, has it flown by. But very exciting stuff. Now, I think you're being a little bit humble, or maybe a little bit sugarcoating it, because let's be honest, you guys were two big competitors. How do you take two big competitors and bring them together to be one big happy family? There's got to be some challenges.
Of course there is, right? But definitely one day at a time. And I got to tell you, I've just been blown away by the synergy. A lot of much smarter people than me. And I have to give a shout out to Dennis Polk, who is our CEO. He's not executive chair. Just a lot of great people, smarter than me. I'll be very self-aware of that. But just really looking at all the pieces and parts, and just, again, it's pieced together. Honestly, it's pieced together a lot more than people assume or understand. Again, it's a journey, but it's exciting. There's a lot of competitiveness, absolutely. I mean, we both did a good job doing what we do for many, many years. So like, what, yes, but I got to tell you, both locations very open. I've been fortunate to make a trip down to Clearwater and vice versa. Again, we are truly, whether our competitors want to believe it or not, we are already one big happy family, and we are ready, and everyone needs to be on alert, if you will. So we're excited.
Well, that's great to hear. I told you that I predicted this merger. I'm going to make one more bold prediction here. This is a healthcare infection control podcast, and people may be saying, well, why are we talking IT? Well, I'm going to make a bold prediction that in the next 5 years, TD SYNNEX will be one of the largest medical device and healthcare distributors in the world. And I know that's an area that you guys play in a little bit, but you're more focused on the IT side. I'm on record right now on this live show. I'll wait and see. I just know that you guys are going to be expanding there. It's the next smart play. And it is a healthcare show. We talked about this. Why are we talking about IT? Well, healthcare is all IT now, right? With the implementation of electronic medical records, it's completely IT centric. And if healthcare is going to be IT centric, then the IT needs to be infection control centric. And talk a little bit about what you guys are doing in healthcare and how you focus on healthcare and other verticals.
I mean, it's everywhere, right? It's devices. It's from the waiting room, from where you check in to the OR to the ER. I mean, it's everywhere. It's from that tablet to that, how you going to charge it? Okay. How you going to use it once you dock it? Okay. You need a keyboard, things like that. It's just all over the place. Right. And guess what happens? They worry, the healthcare, again, they have smart folks there, but they're thinking about, okay, we got to deploy this new device. To get the device, oh my goodness, we forgot that you've got to be able to connect it to it, or maybe the network, or maybe the network's not, as stable as you thought, or then you got security risk with HIPAA. You could go on and on and on. So 9 times out of 10, 90% of it is thought through, and then you think, oh my goodness, what about that? Or you have to troubleshoot, right? So, but I really believe you're right. Everything that involved in healthcare is, I remember going to HIMSS at first, 10, because you guys invited me. We went down there like 11 years ago, and there was a little section of IT, right? Keep me honest here, but I think it was maybe 50 or less booths, if you will, of some kind of IT. And it really wasn't IT, but they called it that. And now, it's a whole, hundreds, right, of different folks. And we're happy to be able to support a lot of those. And a lot of the traditional IT manufacturers now have realized, listen, we have to have something that is relevant to that. And it may be their same device they've been making, but they understand, I'm seeing white papers and all kinds of different scenarios talking about how it fits in that space. It's on everybody's mind, especially the last 20 months, obviously. But it's something that's not going to go away. Which is a good thing for us. So,
well, let's talk a little bit about the last 20 months. We've all been living in the COVID world, and you're with a huge organization that was really a large call center operation historically since the very beginning. You guys have, I don't know how many, probably thousands of inside salespeople. What did you guys do during the pandemic? How did you adjust as an organization that's really focused on an inside force?
100 to 0 in a matter of hours, right? We all remember that time frame in March. And it's funny, we went from, speaking specifically to Greenville, from 1,000 to dozen, not dozens. Those first few days was all that was left. It was kind of scary, right? A little bit, but what was funny is you get home, and myself, I sell this stuff all the time. I buy it. Right. I got home, and I may have had to call my buddy Bill Bramlett or Scott Fillion because I needed a keyboard at the house. And then, I had to go get some headsets, and oh my goodness, a docking station. It's funny. I just sat down on my laptop thinking, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. Now, we didn't realize we'd be doing this 20 months later. We thought we'd be doing it, so it made it. So I think hats off to our leadership because they recognized that we had to go do what we do and use what we're selling and do what we're talking about all the time, right? So the work from home, and I think we're all blessed because of during this pandemic, if you will, technology. Honestly, I believe, obviously I'm biased, technology helped get us through this in so many 100%. Ways. And now when you walk back in these buildings with the temperature and the cameras and all that kind of stuff, is it a pain? It kind of is, right? But it's necessary and it's not going away. And I feel blessed that we're taking the measures and the steps to try to be as safe as possible as we can, right? From a technology standpoint. So pretty impactful.
Yeah, and from a technology standpoint, like you said, you have access to all the latest and greatest technology. But you're right. If this had happened even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, would we have had the virtual conferencing equipment that has really made this transition feasible? I mean, so just very interesting, the timing, and then you're in the right place at the right time. And you guys put your money where your mouth is and use the same solutions that you provide to equip your employees to be successful during this pandemic. When are you guys coming back to work? What's the plan?
I mean, it's a journey. You're right. I feel like there's going to be some kind of I've tried to steer away from the word hybrid. I like the word flexible a lot better, but there'll be a lot of flexibility in everyone's future, I believe, right? From where I sit, I'm a workaholic. I always have been, and I'm self-aware, but to do car line or to go drop the kids off or something, it's pretty, I get a lot. It's interesting how much I can get done on my phone sitting there, things like that. So I don't think it's going to go away, but I do think there'll be we will all continue to evolve. Don't know that it'll ever look like it did. Even travel and things like that are different, if you will, but I'm ready to get back, and we're starting to see signs of getting back. And obviously IT, if you're in Greenville, everybody else has kind of got back to normal, right? But IT, because of our knowledge and our understanding of what we're in the midst of, we are probably taking a little different approach, which is a good thing. So
yeah. And
stay
the
tuned.
access to the access to the technology, you guys have the technology to be successful, and you've utilized it. And so my hat's off to you for that. We build this podcast as the invisible hand of supply chain. Let's talk a little bit about supply chain, because you guys are among the biggest players in the global supply chain and the biggest player in the IT global supply chain. We all are familiar with the shortages that have happened as a result of COVID. What are you seeing? What kind of impact has shortages and supply chain issues had on your business? And what are you doing at TD SYNNEX to help your customers deal with these issues?
You have to be flexible, right? That word here, there's that word again. You have to be able to maybe shift to some other type of technology that might be available. We all know about component shortages and price increases and all that kind of stuff, but you've got to be able to, if you can get your hands on something, if you will, or if there's supply of something and you can make that supply work, you got to go and be aggressive and figure it out, right? It may not be exactly what you wanted, but if you can make it work, and that's where all the back office comes into play, right? So this isn't available. Can we make this work? Let's figure it out. But you also have to be aggressive in that. But also, I'll take a step back. If you're that end user or that reseller listening, you also have to be proactive, right? If you know there's something coming down the pipe, and again, it's going to take a little bit of risks from procurement and that kind of thing, but I think we have to all be a little more proactive too, because human nature is reactive. And guess what? If you're reactive these days, you're going to get a lead time that's it's going to hurt your feelings, if you will, right? So for certain products, right? But
Sure.
Again, I think we've all made it work. You got to make the best of what you got. There's a lot of supply out there in certain areas. You have to be aggressive, be proactive. Supply chain, right? You have to just utilize it as best you can, and then count to 100 a few times a day, I think helps as well.
You and I have talked about it. It's from our perspective, we've spent all these years perfecting being lean and Six Sigma, and
just in time,
all that's out the window, right? Forget it, right? I mean, if it's just in time, it ain't in time, because
just in time is 3 months,
right? So you got to plan ahead. You got to take a little bit of extra risk. And again, in this environment, it seems to me that TD SYNNEX more important than ever, right? Because you're taking away some of that risk.
Yes,
with what
and we do have very knowledgeable people. We have a great, again, getting back to, I mentioned this, I didn't mention this earlier, but the intimacy that we have with all of our suppliers is we're as guys here as well, right? So from the top down, and we have those same relationships from the top down of all of our suppliers, resellers, just all of us just communicating more than ever, over communicating. more planning, a little more meetings, which we don't like, but a little more meetings behind the scenes to kind of try to get ahead of it. But that's what it's all about. But we have to be, you have to make the best of it. And I think we've all learned that, to be a little more understanding as well. If you've tried to buy something for your house or appliances or furniture, cars, goodness gracious, you've seen it already as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, TD SYNNEX, right in the middle of the IT supply chain, the world's largest IT distributor, close to $60 billion, the invisible hand in the IT supply chain, if you will. But it's not all about the business, right? I know you guys have done some great philanthropy work, both at Tech Data and you specifically at SYNNEX. Tell us what we can expect now that TD and SYNNEX have joined together, and tell us about some of the good work you guys are doing.
Well, as far as the future, stay tuned, right? I know that the part I'm a part of that I'll mention in a second is very meaningful, but I think the reach that TD SYNNEX has now is going to be exciting. But for me personally, for the last, I'll try not to get teared up here, for the last almost 11 years now, I've been blessed to be a part of Share the Magic. And that was the brainchild of Peter and Lisa LaRock, our president, his wife, better half, as we tell him, and he knows. But they just wanted that, they saw the need. So 4 local children's charities in Greenville. And here we are 11 years later, $16 million in efforts to take care of those children and those charities. And it's just been a heck of a ride, and very blessed to be a part of it. I'm in the, so Brad, you know me, I don't do anything. If I'm going to do it, I'm all in, right? So
absolutely,
it's just a blessing to be able to give back. And we have now expanded Share the Magic into all of our different geographies, if you will, in North America. I feel like there'll be some extensions of that in the TD SYNNEX as well. So again, I've said stay tuned a few times, and I think that's applicable for this as well, because there'll be a lot of good things ahead of us.
Well, I'm certain of it. I know Tech Data had a great culture of philanthropy. I know SYNNEX did as well. Share the Magic is just a tremendous effort and tremendous success that you've had with that organization, thanks to your support. And I commend you
Thanks
for that.
Thanks to you guys as well. You guys have been a big supporter of it. And it takes a village, right? It's a journey, and we're all blessed. And it's nice when you understand that you are blessed, you need to give back. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And that brings it full circle. Scott Young, I really appreciate you being on Clean Talk today. It's been a lot of fun. Guys, our guest today has been Scott Young, the Senior VP at the newly formed TD SYNNEX, the world's largest IT distributor. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show, Scott. If you missed our last episode, we had Skipper Bond on the show, and he's the CEO of Henley Ion. They've developed some amazing technology around HVAC systems and masks. We're actually going to be off next Wednesday for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back live the following Wednesday, December 1st, and we're going to be on a road trip. We'll be coming to you live from New Orleans in Henley Ion's headquarters. We'll be talking to Dr. Julian Henley, the founder of Henley Ion and the innovator of that incredible mask technology. Look forward to seeing you then, December 1st, 3 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday, and every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for another episode of Clean Talk. For my guest, Scott Young, I'm your host, Brad Whitchurch, reminding you until next time, keep it clean.